Welcome, everyone, to Artists Honoring Women Season 2, Episode 3. We're super excited to have all of you here joining us today. I want to start this evening's conversation first by acknowledging the land that we are on. Uh, we would like to begin this program by recognizing that while we gather in the Santa Clara County, we are gathered on the ethno-historic tribal territory of the Temian Ohlone, who were related to the direct ancestors of the lineages enrolled in the Muwekma Ohlone tribe. The lands on which Santa Clara County are established continues to be of great significance to the Muwekma Ohlone tribe of the Bay Area. We also recognize that the ancestors of the Muwekma Ohlone constructed and maintained the three Bay Area missions: Santa Clara, San Jose, and San Francisco. Thank you. So, what is womanhood? The year 2022 marks 2 years since the start of the Womanhood Project. For those of you that are new to learning about our project, the Womanhood Project was launched in 2020 by the Santa Clara Office of Women's Policy. We all know that was a tough year. So the last 2 years, we've been doing a lot of work behind the scenes and have been really working on the Artists Honoring Women conversations. Womanhood Project is a public art and digital media project that works with artists to commission interactive educational art that promotes historical contributions of women across all intersectional identities. In February of this year, we started the first pilot temporary public art project here in downtown San Jose called Womanhood Anonymous No More. This is a downtown San Jose specific artist residency that honors women's contributions to the city of San Jose. The goals for this project was really to continue the conversation around women's recognition through public arts. The pilot project is a start to other temporary projects that we will develop as we continue to reach out to the communities throughout the county, the 15 cities in our county, to learn which women and groups we should honor, how we should honor them, and where we should honor them. The temporary public art project started in San Jose, but soon we want to span this across the entire county to explore through the community engagement pop-ups that we will be doing to learn how permanent projects can take form. So what is Artists Honoring Women? If you haven't been here before, welcome. If you have, welcome back. Now that you've learned a little on how we got here with the Womanhood Project, I want to welcome you to Season 2, Episode 3 of Artists Honoring Women. Last year, we highlighted 7 artists across the nation whose work, art, and advocacy explored what recognition in public art looked like, while reconsidering issues of representation and cultural identity. This season, we will highlight local 13 artists from the Womanhood Downtown San Jose Artist Residency. These are all women artists. They have commemorated 25 women who contributed quality of life in downtown San Jose, Santa Clara County, and to the arts sector. So we continue Season 2 with artist Elba Raquel and we will have our second artist after Elba, who I will announce later. She is one of our downtown San Jose artist residents for Womanhood Anonymous No More. Elba Raquel is a San Jose native. She earned an AS in design, a BFA in illustration, and an MA in education. Elba is a full-time art teacher at Latino College Preparatory and a part-time freelance artist. She has 2 murals in San Jose and is part of the Together We Create live painting performance group. Her freelance work is recognized by her bright colors and rhythmic compositions that she describes as fantastic realism. Welcome, Elba.
Hi, thank you for having me. And it's a real honor to be in this space with you, virtual space. But like mostly, I want to say thank you to the woman every time I speak about the Art Builds community. I have to recognize the work that you do for San Jose, and just the legacy that you're leaving behind is phenomenal. So thank you for
Thank you.
project.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Well, we're excited to see your presentation. So I'll let you get started.
Thank you for the wonderful introduction. I feel like all of this has already been spoken about, but I do have 3 degrees. I'm an illustrator, fine artist, muralist, and a teacher. I think that it's important to mention all of the career aspects because I bring a little bit of what I do into every sector of my professional life. For instance, as a teacher, I'm always talking about my projects in the classroom. Womanhood actually had a huge impact in my teaching career. My students created their own Womanhood Project, and maybe I could talk about it later. But I'm definitely going to be bringing in into this conversation a lot about my students. This was a mural that I did about a year ago, and I think that my launch into public art sector would have to be with this mural. But the reason I wanted to showcase this mural is to talk about exactly what Amanda brought up, the Ohlone land that we are in, and bringing forward the connection between womanhood. So at the center of the entire mural, you see an Ohlone woman, and I recognize her as our like Mother Earth, as our spiritual guide, as also just what the word mother embodies is the nurture, the person that protects us, the person that guides us. And when we think about our ancestors and their way of life, a lot of the decisions that were made in the community always were referred back to the women. It wasn't necessarily that the men didn't have a voice, but the last word had to do with the woman and the mother, because they're the ones that bear our children. They're the life givers, right? So important decisions always were made and consulted on by the woman. And I think that it's very important to recognize that. There's a softness, there's a compassion, there's a nurturing. This is a piece that speaks about the femicide that is, it's not necessarily happening only in Mexico, it's happening all around in different nations. But I only put these two pieces of my personal work because I thought they were important in that they show my connection to my artistic voice that speaks about women's issues. There is a huge macho culture. I'm Latina, I'm Mexican, so specifically in the Mexican culture, there is a lot of machismo where we have to be careful what we teach our boys, right? And from the onset of a lot of unfortunate upbringings, there has been a large culture of mistreating women or making women inferior to men, which allows men to see our bodies or like something that can be taken, or they see us as worthless. And when women go missing or when women get approached in a way that they shouldn't, it's very hard for them to be taken seriously. And it's hard for me. You see me stumbling upon my words. It's not an easy topic. And I create this artwork. I'm much better at creating the artwork and letting it speak for itself than I am about verbalizing it. Because it still hurts, and I still see it happening in this world today. I had my cousin came from Mexico to help me paint the mural that you saw in the last slide. And one of the things that she was talking to me about was a lot of the issues that are happening in Guadalajara, in Mexico, where women are disappearing, but not a lot of people are doing anything about it. And then when the women rise up and they take to the streets and try to speak up for themselves, they're just calling them crazy women that are protesting. So this is a call to the women in all over the world, specifically Latinas, that we need to stick together and we need to stand up. And if people aren't going to listen to us, well, we need to be really strong. You also see a very strong and muscular woman, which we're not used to seeing women in that role. These pieces are made to educate, and for us to find our women's strength, right? We have to, as women, be role models. And I think that we do this by breaking the gender roles. Like, here's a picture of myself working out, showing my muscles. This is also a self-portrait. A lot of the people, sometimes I get told, if you keep working out, you're going to look like a man. And I don't think there's anything wrong with a woman, you know, if I grow my armpit hair, if I don't shave my legs, if I don't, I've always been dealing with fighting whatever gender roles have been placed on me and then changing that for myself so that my boys, when they see me in a bathing suit and I have my armpit hairs, or if they see me working out, they see it as normal so that when they get older, they accept women who aren't necessarily fitting those roles. I also think that a woman should have the freedom to speak and have a voice, so that we can redefine what feminism is, right? Feminism to me, I've always been a feminist, but I've always had a problem with the word feminism because I think that a lot of the times I see or hear feminism is equal to men haters. And I don't hate men. I love men. They're people, right? Feminism for me, and this is a quote directly from me, feminism is not a woman's choice. I'm sorry, feminism is not a woman's issue. It's a human's right issue. Men are an essential part of the solution. Like I said, raising two young boys, I have to be the role model and I have to teach them about how to treat women. We're all just human beings. Today in my classroom, I had a child ask me, a high schooler, he asked me if I thought it was fair that his sister had a curfew and he didn't. And I said, well, it really is, because if you think about it, we have two human beings and one human being can stay out till 11 and the other human being has to be home by 8. It seems really unfair because we're just humans. So definitely redefining what feminism is, inviting the men into the conversation, inviting the men to be a part of our support instead of pushing them away when they try to help and when they try to support. We can't be angry at the men. We just have to educate and redefine ourselves so that they could start seeing us in the power that we are. Which brings us to the Womanhood Project. When I first got approached to be a part of this project, I was jumping with glee because you, as an artist, you create artwork and you hope that somebody who's doing something phenomenal that aligns with your values knocks on your door and offers you a project that aligns with your passion and what you're trying to put out into the community. And this was one of those passion projects. When I saw the roster of the women that I could have selected, the very first person that I felt attracted to, and I was like, this is the person that I'm going to honor, was Kathy Cordova. It was immediate because of the work she does with the recovery cafe in San Jose. I have a family member who was an alcoholic and he died on the streets as an alcoholic. And I thought, wow, maybe if he would have been in San Jose, maybe he could have, not had that life, or maybe he could have had a chance or an opportunity. So Kathy's work really hit close to home. And I chose LaDoris Cordell because I was looking for an honoree that I could connect to on a personal level. And LaDoris is great. She is a judge and she has done so many firsts in this world, specifically here in California. But when I saw all of the artwork that she does, she plays piano, she's a vocalist, she does charcoal paintings, like she wrote a book. When I saw everything that she could do artistically, I just fell in love with the idea of representing a multidimensional woman. And then you see some of my inspiration for Kathy Cordova. I obviously have, these types of plants in my house. And the reason I have these plants is because I can ignore them. They don't require a lot of water. They don't require a lot of time. And they kind of just, let me be busy while they survive, literally survive in my house. That's important because the people that she is helping are people who have been maybe forgotten, people who have to survive, they have probably had a lot of neglect in their life. But with her help, she says that the process of So I'm going to read this. The process of watching a caterpillar move through a chrysalis and become a butterfly is very similar to recovery. So her ability to transform people's lives through the work that she does, I knew that I had to bring some plants in because she's talking about chrysalises and butterflies, and nature was very important. I didn't want to talk to Kathy at the beginning. I know people were trying to get me to talk to Kathy, and I was scared. When I read her little bio, I immediately saw the image of her very saintly, and I imagined her almost like an angel. And the colors that I saw were very feminine and very nurturing. And I was afraid that if I talked to Kathy, that I would find reality and be grounded, and I would lose my vision. So I did get to talk to Kathy later, and I explained to her why I didn't give her a call. And she just looked at me and she said, "The colors that you chose are the colors that I always choose for my go-to, like decorating, and they're my favorite colors." I said, "Oh my goodness." Um, she said also, because I told her that I thought of her as almost like an angel, she happened to be wearing angel earrings the day that I met her. And so she also is very into angels. So I feel like this piece was very intuitive, more than Judge LaDoris Cordell's. Hers was more research based. And I have a funny story to tell about LaDoris. She gave me a call and I had already finished my piece because I was on a roll. Like I just go artistically. And I stereotyped an artist as a painter. So here you see a paintbrush she's holding a paintbrush in her hand. And when I interviewed her, she said, "Well, actually, I've never painted in my life. I wouldn't even know how to paint and what to do with a paintbrush." I had to redesign the products in her hand, and I had to do a mechanical pencil and some charcoal sticks. So I am glad I did talk to LaDoris because I was able to make those corrections. I don't know if that would have been something that I would have been happy about having out in the public. Once it's out there, it's permanent. When it came time to choose how I was going to produce this giant 10-foot installation, I decided to go digital versus traditional. I usually work traditional, but I did not want to compromise the quality of any image by having to photograph any traditional work. So I wanted something that went straight from my computer to the printer, and there would be no issues there. I also wanted something where I could make a whole bunch of changes. There's not a lot to see here. It looks just a bunch of pictures of my computer and my fingers. It's not as exciting as you would say it is for like the pictures for a live painter, right? When you're painting a mural, there's a lot of really cool pictures, but this is the best we can do for a digital artist. If I were to show some exciting behind the scenes images, you would see pictures of me in my pajama. You would see videos of me rapping at 4 a.m. in the morning because I had a lot of coffee and I had a deadline to meet. And there's a whole bunch of foibles that happen. For instance, I am so used to working traditional that I inked my entire two pieces and killed about a week's worth of work because I thought, oh, I'm just going to scan those and then blow those up. That doesn't work, people. If you're going to do a 10-foot digital piece, please don't ink them at 10 inches. Does not work. I tried it. I had to re-ink the whole thing and waste a whole 5 days of work. So when an artist presents you with a work of art and you say, you make this look so easy, know that there are countless hours that goes behind every single production, because that's what it is. A lot of sacrifices and a huge production. This is my final piece. You can see the digital file versus the actual installation. I put myself in the picture so you could see how large those pieces actually are. They're huge. I was really shocked to see them. Art Builds community is amazing. They allowed me to be a part of the installation process, and I felt like a little girl just filming the whole process. It's not on here, but you can see it on their website or their Instagram. It was just a wonderful process to be a part of. LaDoris's piece and Kathy's piece are connected through the butterflies. The butterflies also represent the people that they help grow, the people that, so LaDoris through policy, right? LaDoris was able to uh, have policies for, I wrote this down because I didn't want to get this wrong. Installation of ignition interlock devices that prevent drunk drivers from, driving while drunk, intoxicated. So she helped with those policies. She also helped with a lot of policies that have to do with minorities and a lot of, the population that have low income. So she lives in Palo Alto, and that is where a lot of her policies originated. And she helps put into place just, I don't know how, let me see if I could think of one. She helped put into place a lot of laws and policies that have to do with helping parents, non-custodial parents, have a supervised visits so that there's a safe environment for parents to be around their children. I think that's really important. I have friends and I have family who, have those types of arrangements, and it really helps the parents be in the children's lives. I think that's very important. And then you see the piano, you see the book that LaDoris wrote in the scales, you see her fighting for African American rights, Latino rights. And then you have on the left side, you have the chrysalis and the butterfly and the transformation that is happening at the hands of the work that Kathy does. I think both of these pieces are what I call a little bit magical. They're supposed to take you into this world where it's almost ethereal. I think that the work that they're doing is very, I'm not saying that they are out of this world. They're ordinary women doing extraordinary things, but I wanted us to feel the magic of their work, because the legacy that they're leaving behind is going to live on, longer than they are, right? And I really wanted to showcase just the longevity and the angelic aspect of what they do as earthlings. And then the project itself did put me into contact with these wonderful women. I was able to talk to Kathy, and we were able to connect. And this is the post event that we had at Macla. It was really beautiful to just meet somebody that you've been working on an artwork for them for, I don't know, it was about a month, and to see her face to face, and to see her with her partner and really admiring the artwork, but really to see her being elevated and being recognized for the work that she does just really touched my heart. And LaDoris was able to, she was kind enough to send me and dedicate her book to me and send me a little gift package. And I was able to use that in the actual piece. But yeah, she was very generous. And when I talked to her, she is a woman of such humility and such honor and such fairness. The what she stands for, and public reform, and she believes in giving people second chances, and she sees the goodness in people. And I think that's what I'm so honored to be representing her, and to be honoring both of these women, right? Like, I just can't express how, when I see the totality of the entire project, just the entire project, it makes me proud to be a woman artist working for women, representing these wonderful women.
Wow. Elba, that was incredible. Thank you so much for sharing your process, for sharing. I took a lot of notes, which I tend to do during these conversations. And you shared with us not only what came to you at the beginning of the Womanhood Project, of this temporary public art project in San Jose, and learning about not only the project but Art Builds community and who we are as a woman's led art public art firm. But then you also, like, you started this presentation by sharing the youth that you're working with, and I think what you um, ended with, in this idea of like the belief in second chances. I almost feel like that's full circle to the students that you work with, right? So, that reminding them that it's okay to make mistakes, it's okay to fail sometimes, that it's going to come back around and you'll have that opportunity to do something again and do it the way you want to do it. So I took a lot from what you just shared. I just want you to know that I have like so much going on in my head right now. I just
I'm
want
sorry.
to.
I was trying to time myself and be short, but I
It's okay.
I can't not talk policy and art and,
Yeah.
just keep it short. It's hard for me. There's too much, right? One
Yeah.
image is one image just speaks so much.
Yeah.
So the reason I brought up second chances and third chances, LaDoris Cordell is trying to change the policy. Well, she changed the policy on the three strikes law, and she's trying to work on changing the death penalty laws.
Mm.
So it's work, even though she's retired, she's still
Still
trying to
working.
make change in the community.
That's amazing. Now, I want to ask: Are you have since you've since the artworks have gone up and they're public? Have you had a chance to talk with the two women, or since then? I don't think you've met with them in person, other than the image we saw with you and Kathy. But have you had a chance to email with them or anything and kind of talk about the experience?
So I have been on overdrive since January. I haven't even had a chance to breathe. I've been meaning to reach out to Kathy
Mhm.
because she gave me her book, and I haven't even had a chance to read it. I got to make time to read it. I can't talk to her until I read it. But I am definitely going to touch base with her, and with
Oh,
Kathy.
did
Actually,
you
at
mean LaDoris's book? Is that what you're? Oh,
Doris.
okay. Okay.
And then with Kathy, I actually had, I don't know, we'll call it dinner at the event.
Um,
We had dinner and hors d'oeuvres, and we sat at the same, well, we stood at the same table, and we talked for about 30 or 40 minutes. And I got
wow.
to know her, and I got to know her partner. And
Yeah.
just talking to her really confirmed that the piece that I created was specifically geared, and it was perfect for her. She just felt like it represented her, uh, like, to the T.
Oh, that's
And
fantastic to hear.
it makes me feel not so bad about refusing to speak to her, but I did get to speak to her after, and I'm supposed to go down to the cafe, the recovery cafe. Maybe around May, I'll
Yeah.
stop.
Oh, that sounds fantastic. I mean, I there's just so much there because, you know, I I haven't had a chance to share this with you yet, but I have given a few walks, tours of the artwork, and I always start at that corner of the four artworks that are there, and I get to share these amazing stories that I hear from the artists. So I have had a chance to share Kathy's story of someone who has rose above from addiction and is helping others rise above from that as well. And with Ladora, some people already they recognized her immediately, um, um, just like some of the other women that are recognized in this project. But the ones that they don't recognize, like Kathy, they love hearing those stories. It's and this is why we're doing this, right? We're
Mhm.
here to share the histories of the women who have and are working for our communities.
Right. And it's important to see people that we don't. I had this conversation with LaDoris. I said, I don't know how much I should share, and I don't know how much I'm supposed to put out into the public. So a lot of my work is very hidden and symbolic. So for Kathy, she did mention that she was a recovering, right? So recovering from addiction.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that having women who are now successful and have successful in many ways, right? Career wise, and then also successful in recovery, it puts the people who are in those situations. She's an example now of what can be of your life if you have the right amount of help and the right. I don't know. I'm not in that situation, so I don't know what it takes to be there.
Yeah.
So having somebody like African American, somebody of color, it was important for me to represent that as well, because I don't know, even as a Latina, you don't see that many Latinos out in public. You don't see dark skinned people. And I teach at Latino College Prep Academy.
Right.
So for me, having an equal representation of not just light skinned people, but darker skinned people is going to lift my students up, is going to lift my family members up, right?
Right.
And I think that it's super important to recognize all walks of life. Little hidden symbol in there is the piano. The piano has different color keys, and that is the rainbow, right? The I don't know. So the women that I represented, I didn't choose them for this, but it turns out both women have wives, right? It just
LGBTQ, yeah.
LGBTQ, and they actually know each other. I had no idea.
Oh, I didn't know they did. That makes sense.
She worked with LaDoris. So it was just this, I think it was super serendipitous.
Yeah.
That the women that I picked, even things like I picked Kathy first because of the addiction,
Right.
the recovery, but then here comes LaDoris making policies to prevent drunk drivers from driving. I was mind blown at the parallels between these two women.
Yeah, it was meant to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a it's wonderful artwork. We're so excited that you stepped in. So thank you. I want to thank you. I want to thank you again. We're going to bring you back, but we're going to move on, and I'm going to introduce our next artist, and that is Yolanda Huara, who is a conceptual mixed media artist that focuses on wood block printing, quilting, textile soft sculptures, and embroidery. Huara's work explores social justice issues and the oppression of Black and Brown people. Her work focuses on children and families along the border and her personal experiences as a teacher and a Chicana woman navigating life. She has moved to create work about things, issues, and people that are often overlooked. I'm so excited to have you here, Yolanda. I can't wait to learn more about what you're going to share. I am somebody who worked in the textile art field, so I'm looking forward to seeing what it is that you share from the work that you created, and I'm excited to have you here. So I'm going to go ahead and let you get started.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm going to sort of correct you my last name, because I will say that because I just learned how to pronounce my last name really correctly. So it's Guerra. The R's roll.
Oh,
I learned how to do my own R's.
Guerra. I have a hard time with rolled R's, so I will be honest with you. I have a really hard time with rolled R's.
No, I'm telling you, like when I was driving in my car and I was listening to a Gloria Estefan song, and I was like singing it softly, and like the R's, like, oh my God, those R's are rolling. Oh my God. I almost started crying driving because I'm like, I could do it.
Yeah. Okay. I'll make sure. I will be mindful of that.
So I do want to say, like, thank you so much for Womanhood Project for selecting me as one of the artists out of 13 artists. And I was just really excited. And so thank you for this opportunity to do this artwork. So I'm going to share my slides. Let me open this up. Oh, there we go. So let me see if I could do this. Let me see. Yeah, okay. Okay. So my name is Yolanda, and I was born and raised here in San Jose, California. I got my BFA degree at San Jose State. I'm a high school teacher teaching at the school that I went to. So I'm part of the community, and I'm really proud of that. Like, I live downtown too, so I'm really, really proud of being at the school, serving this, serving my community. I teach at San Jose High, which is the second oldest high school in California, and I think it's a jewel in our city, and I'm really, really proud and honored to be teaching there. But I'm a local artist, and so I want to share a little bit about my process in doing the work and who I chose to honor. And I'm excited because I chose to honor that. Like when we had our first meeting, I was like typing in the text, like, I want to do these two women. I want to do these two women, and they weren't on the list. And I want to share a little bit more about that. So creating my pieces. So Sofía Mendoza and Lorna de Cervantes were my two community builders, San Jose, that I created artwork about. And so, like it was mentioned before, I do woodblock printing, and I like to do the woodblock printing and then incorporate it into textile and quilting and fabric. So my process was just drawing out the pictures and then cutting into it with my woodblock tools. So here in this picture here, you'll see some of the images of the two women. And then obviously like piecing them together. So on the first image, you'll see Sofía Mendoza, where I printed her on my press. I have a press in my studio space, and so I had to wait till that kind of dried up before I started quilting it into or piecing it together. And so it was really great to know that her grandson lives in the community. He lives in North San Jose, which is my community, North San Jose. And so I had asked the family, like, what was her favorite color? And they said red. And I was like, all right. So got all my fabrics out, started putting things together. And then as I researched a little bit more about Sofía Mendoza, started to come together as far as piecing it. And so I thought about using hands to represent community and also like social justice issues, because Sofía Mendoza, I met her once when I was in high school. She came to our school. And so she talked about, her life, but also she helped organize at a time like in 1986 where they were going to close the high school down. And she helped organize the community to not have that happen. Because if it happened, then all the Latino students were going to be bused in South San Jose to kind of end desegregation. So it was wonderful to kind of come full circle with this woman who was like a really important part of my life as a young person. And as I later learned more about her and being part of the community, being part of like labor council and being part of other community groups that I'm associated with, that so many people knew Sofía Mendoza, and learning more about her through these people, firsthand knowledge. So she was an amazing woman who, this is what I find so fantastic, was that she helped organize the community to be watchdogs against the police who were abusing Latinos. And before like our iPod, before our iPhones, before, where we started videotaping, they were actually using a video camera out there recording incidents that, where police officers were not treating, young Latinos in the community. So she helped organize that. And that was like so fantastic to learn about. And she helped having affordable housing. So that she started the conversation within San Jose about affordable housing. Unfortunately, we're still here. We're still talking about affordable housing, but she was the first person who started talking about that and helped organizing with that. And then one of the biggest things is that she really did this fantastic thing. So there used to be a junior high at the Roosevelt Community Center. There used to be a junior high on that campus, that area. They closed it down. They destroyed the building. But before that, there were teachers who were mistreating Latino students, like really saying horrible things to these kids. And when she found out, she organized people to go to the board and put a stop to that. And some of those teachers got fired, and they had to make changes at that school. And so, and I think that's why I feel so connected to it, because I'm a teacher. I grew up in the neighborhood. I grew up in the same neighborhood. I knew people who, like older people that I know now, who went to Roosevelt Junior High and remembered that protest. Um, and so I think of her as really a big, um, important person in our community that gets overlooked. Everyone knows Sofia Mendoza, but then it's like, but that's it, and where does it go? And so I felt it was really important to lift her up in our community, and that's why I chose her to be part of this project, to have the conversation about her again. And I had people send me emails like telling me like, "Hey, thanks for doing that. Thanks for talking about her." And that was really important. That was important to me to kind of get that as an artist, hearing other people having good reception to something that I created. Um, and then Lorna de Cervantes, a poet, a Chicana poet. Both of these women are Chicana poets, and I self-identify as a Chicana. I was born and raised here, and like I said, I was like, I don't know if you will talk about my being able to roll my R's, but um, so I associate with these two women very much as a Chicana. But Lorna de Cervantes also didn't speak Spanish, and so she was very much assimilated into her, losing or being assimilated, right? Not having to speak Spanish, or not, her parents didn't want her to speak Spanish. Same thing with my parents, and she she writes about that in her poetry, and she now she speaks Spanish. I'll just say that much. But at the time when I was introduced to her, um, I was going to junior college. I was going to Evergreen Valley College, and a professor there, a teacher there, she introduced me to her book, and her book Inflamada. This is the book from this is what I had, and so she gave me actually this teacher gave me this book, and I was really like so connected to that poetry. My heart, like I'm just kind of, well, I'm gonna start tearing up, but so connected to that poetry that um, being a Chicana and having to be a part in this community, and then with assimilation, and then feeling like not being a part of being Mexican and being questioned whether or not, um, kind of did something to me, and to know that she uh, just pushed on. She was herself. She created her poetry. She spoke. She was expressing herself, and she spoke to me when reading her poetry. And so at junior college, we had a poetry festival as part of that, and I read one of her poems, and then like when you read poetry live, it kind of gets in you. Like you read someone's poems and you're reading them out loud, it kind of like it becomes in your system and your bones. And so she gave me a foundation to move forward courageously in expressing myself. And I didn't know at the time, like I didn't give myself a label of being an artist yet. I did art, but I didn't say I'm an artist, right? Um, and she gave me a foundation to build upon. Um, and I was ready to, at some point when I went to San Jose State, to say like, yeah, I'm an artist. Um, and uh, anyway, so it's just like it was very motivational and very inspirational. So these two women kind of are a part of me and this community. Um, and Lorna de Cervantes also wrote about when 280 was created. 280 wasn't even there like at a certain time, right? And so she lived in a house under 280, or like 280 went over her house, I would put it that way. And so she talks about that. And so in my piece, I added a portion of that poem as well as her poem Emplumada, and kind of molding those two together, those poems together in my art piece of her. So here's the art pieces. These are quilts, and I'll just say, like, we roughly had like 3 weeks to do it. And as a teacher, it's like, I got to kind of figure out my schedule. Like, okay, this week I'm going to draw the pictures. Then tomorrow, or actually this week I draw pictures, I'm going to be like carving. And then, it's all like these, like my list. I have my little bulletin board. Okay, check it off, check it off. This is what I'm doing, this is what I'm doing. So, so like creating these pieces were really involved. And I also knew that when I created these pieces, and I'll just say this much, like when I do pieces like this that are very personal, the process for me is like, I want to be a part of it physically. Okay. So carving into pieces to create these images was about each kind of, like, each carve, each stitch that I did, right? Even though I was using a sewing machine, but it was like a meditative process. It's like a meditative process of thinking about these women. And so it was a very physical thing, like putting the piecing of the fabric together, knowing like how I'm going to put what color, like everything, everything in its place was thought through. And I know that sounds like, of course, artists think through. Sometimes we don't. Sometimes it just kind of, just intuitively do it. But these were all kind of, I need to have certain spaces for, for these women. And I didn't know exactly why, but I know I was like piecing, like for Lorna de Cervantes' piece, I gotta clean this, my eyes are watery because I'm about to cry. For Lorna de Cervantes' piece, I used those shapes that were vertical, kind of reminiscent of like books, right? Reading. And then for Lorna de Cervantes, for Sofía de Mendoza, I wanted open spaces, but connections and more horizontal because it's like building community. So they're kind of subtle hidden things, but if you don't see them, you don't get them. That's okay. I just know I needed it that for myself. So, again, the hands representing this kind of community building in Sofía Mendoza's, and then Lorna de Cervantes, the feathers that were representing like emplumada. And emplumada is like a feather, a fiery feather. And so I kind of included that about her as, very passionate in her writing. And then the last piece is at the exhibition at Makla. And I was so like moved to meet her family members. There's her daughter and her granddaughter that was there. And her granddaughter was she was very, very lovely and came up to me very quiet and very soft. And she said, I just want to introduce myself and thank you. And it was pretty awesome. And those are the kind of things that, as an artist, that you get that opportunity to make that connection, that builds that kind of community, that kind of remembrance of a person, and that means a great deal. I didn't want to cry. So that is what I'm showing here in this slide. I'm going to show some other images of other work that I have done. So this is about womanhood. So some of my work, actually most of my work is about womanhood, is about like being a woman, being a Chicana in this community, an artist, a teacher, and I don't have children. And so being a creator of I don't know, being a creator of some kind of movement, I think. And that's kind of and my art pieces are kind of like my children as I put out into the world. And so so the pieces I'm going to show you right now are vulvas. So, okay. So these pieces, they have like I've been doing a series of vulvas, vaginas. I call them, it's kind of interesting. Okay, they're vulvas, but the way they're constructed, they go kind of deep in. So they're kind of a deep kind of process. So they're kind of vulva vagina kind of thing. And at first, like when people look at them, they chuckle or they laugh like, oh, vagina, haha, but they're kind of they're serious pieces because, our society kind of they don't take women seriously, like we're not taken seriously in our life. We're not taken seriously in the medical field either, in the sense that there's not a lot of studies or research about women's health. And I didn't realize that, until like I had to talk to my doctor just about whatever, issues or whatever, my gynecologist. And she goes, "Oh, well, that's interesting." She goes, "We haven't done a lot of studies on that." I'm like, "What? Like, why aren't there a lot of studies on that issue or whatever it was that I was talking to her about?" And I started researching. It's like, oh, because like, we're not that important to study. And so I have created these pieces to kind of talk about like the politics of women, our bodies, and also the beauty of pleasure and sexuality. Um, and so it's a mixture of sorts. These first ones that you see here are the politics, right? It's about the oppression on women's rights. The first one, My Body, My Joy, My Love, this piece was part of an exhibition in Mexico City that was called the Patchwork Healing Blanket. And so they created this gigantic quilt. It's a continuation of it. So it's all these different countries coming together to kind of piece a large quilt like the AIDS quilt, but focusing on women's issues, femicide, etc. So I was asked to participate, which was actually fantastic. And so this is my piece. And so it's included into this big quilt. And then I had an opportunity to go to Washington for the march in 2016 after the elections. And it was an interesting experience as a Latina going to this women's march. And so that's why it's like, let's crochet pink, like the pink hat, right? And it was an interesting experience, and I'm glad I went. And then obviously like the My Vote Matters, and kind of as a little, like as a voting booth. So those are like some of the political pieces. These next ones again are about the joy of sexuality, and like pleasure, and kind of humor, like having a sense of humor to it, like, the Cracker Jack box of surprises. The No Strings Attached with the red one with the strings, where you can have sex with, like, you don't have to have anything else that goes along with it. Like men do that, and of course you're doing it all responsibly, respectfully, and open in communication. And then sometimes it's like, with sexuality, it's like, sometimes you feel like you deserve an award for the things you do. And then just the beauty, right? Just the beauty of our own bodies, of giving pleasure, giving life, and that power that we have. And it's powerful because there's so many laws against it. There's so many laws against us. And so I'm just showing that joy in these pieces. So let me go to my next images. So honoring and acknowledging other women. And so who else to honor but my mama, right? First. And so, oh gosh, here I go again. So in this piece I created, this was, oh my God, I was unemployed 1 year. I wouldn't wish that on anyone. So I was unemployed 1 year. And before I was unemployed, I had this idea of wanting to make this gigantic quilt of this gigantic tortilla to honor my mother. And I had the fabric, but I didn't have the time because I was teaching. And you know how things just kind of fall into place. And so I had the ability to have the time to create this. Someone gave me a gift certificate to the tech. I forgot the name of the shop. It doesn't exist anymore, but we had a tech shop where you could go and use, machines. And so I had the time to create it there. And I won an award there for this quilt. And then just by chance, I was at the San Jose Quilt and Textile Museum. And at the time, I was talking to the curator, just talking, and like talking about a show that was there. And then she had said, "Oh, she was. I think she had this. She had a kind of a New York kind of way about her." She said, "Oh, we're having a show, like a tasty show." And I said, "Oh, that's cool." Like, she told me about it. It's about food, and I said, "Oh, I've created a quilt that's a tortilla." She goes, "Let me see it." So, like, boom, showed her on my phone. She goes, "You need to send this image to, the director." And so I did, and this is my like first time showing my first quilt that I ever like created. My first quilt. I'm not a quilter, and I won't label myself as a quilter, but a textile artist. And she really loved it, and so they included it into the show. And I think what was so fantastic about that experience was that so many different cultures that showed up to that exhibition or that were there, and they came up to me and talked to me about their experience just looking at it. People were like, who were Jewish, like, "Oh, this is like a certain food," or and an Indian culture, "Oh, this is like naan." And then other people had like, or like Indian bread, Native American bread, like that I forget the name of the bread, but anyway, that kind of indigenous kind of bread. And I love that. I love that. And then and then some people were looking at it and they're like, "Oh, I see a rabbit in there. Oh, I see a woman." And I was like, "Okay, I didn't do that." But so this is an actual image of my mother's tortilla, and that I created this fabric. And I've also made other items. I made it like little purses. I've sold stuff on Etsy. I'm not doing that at this moment, but um, so I created this piece. And then I took my mom to go see it, and she goes, "Oh, this is a." She was like, "This is so big. What a big tortilla!" And I told my mom, like, I made it. She goes, "You did?" I go, "Mom, it's your tortilla too." And she was like really thrilled about it, and she just thought it was funny. And and it is about fun. It's about home. So quilted in this tortilla is home, love all the way around the tortilla. In the center, there's a anatomically correct heart that's in the middle of it. And I'm honoring my mother for all our life. She made tortillas, in the morning. She did it when we got home, and you could walk. Like, I remember walking home from school from Grant Elementary, and you could smell the tortillas. And it may not have just been my mother's. I'm sure other people in the neighborhood were making tortillas at the time, but it was that following that smell and that connection to home. And I think now, like, not very many people make tortillas, flour tortillas. um but uh but that was something that I wanted to honor about my mother, and other women who did that and do that, as well as some men too. Like, I had an uncle who made flour tortillas as well. And um so that was like my first person that I honored as a woman. And then from there, like I said, I made other things. And so here I have these small size, like the size, of a tortilla, with that same fabric. Um, and I embroidered some of the women who I admire, and they're not all Mexican. They're not Mexican women. Some of them are, some aren't. But Dolores Huerta, Lila Downs, Sonia Sotomayor, Celia Cruz, Sandra Cisneros, and there's other ones too that I'm not showing here. But and I call them miracle tortillas, and it's kind of a little, like, it's humorous, but it's serious for me. It's humorous in the sense that people would see like the face of Jesus in a tortilla, right? And they honor them. So it's like, in that sense, I'm honoring them with a little humor, but a seriousness about it too. Um, and I had an opportunity to meet Dolores Huerta. And I didn't have the tortilla on me, but I had it on the phone. And I was in an exhibition in Los Angeles. I was so excited to meet her. And I said, "Hey, I want to show you something." So I showed her. She goes, "That's right." She said, "It is a miracle, isn't it?" And it was really cool. It was really cool to meet her and having that little interaction with her. Um, and then another person that I've honored, or kind of brought to remembrance of, because no one really talks about it, And I just stumbled across it on a radio show. I was listening to a radio station, and they mentioned this woman and a little bit about the story. And this woman, her name is Josefa Segovia, and she was the first Latina woman, Mexican American woman. They state that as a Mexican American woman because California became part of America at the time. So she was a Mexican American woman who was hung. First woman, only woman, last woman. And she was pregnant. And there's more to that story, but basically she was defending herself. But the townspeople, who were minors, because it was around that time, just said, which were mainly men, and just said, nah, she got to go, right? So they hung her. And this piece is called How the West is Won. And I tied in the Fallon statue. And if some people don't know, that I've been kind of vocal about the Fallon statue, of having it be removed because it's offensive to the indigenous people, the native people who've been here. And people will say, well, Mexicans just up to the indigenous people. Well, okay, yes, there's some truth to that. However, these lands no one owned them. We were working together until, we weren't. And our treaties weren't honored, broken promises. So I combined these two images together. And one of the things about Josefa is that this is a picture that you see here. This is like the only picture that they created about her, is that when she was going on the day to be hung, she put the noose around her neck and she said, "Adios, señores." And and she also tied up her skirts so that it doesn't, like no one could see stuff, right? But she just said, "Adios," And the thing that when you read in between the lines about her and about that incident that happened, there are things that they say about her. She was, kind of like that stereotype of that crazy Latina, high, full of, passion. They also kind of talk about how beautiful she was. But she was very much involved with someone else. They weren't married, but another Mexican man. And I think, there's in between the lines kind of stories about her. And you read it and it's like, it doesn't, it was just this kind of stereotype of getting rid of a woman who was very strong and powerful. So I included her in this presentation because she's also a person who's often forgotten about. I don't think no one really knows about her. And and again, that's the kind of work that I do, which is work that is talking about people that are often forgotten. These few pieces that I have here pertaining to women at the border, or at least the first two, about women at the border. And during the time around 2016, I didn't want to say the name. I don't want to say the name of the president. But anyway, around that time, and all this turmoil with families along the border, and it's still going on. No one's talking about it because we have a different president, but it's still happening. It was very mind-splitting, heart-splitting, as a Latina woman, to know that these things were happening, that children were being taken away, separated, and kind of lost, like no accounting of where they are. And so I was really, really moved by this, and I still am. And so I did some pieces regarding that. And so this first one is about a mother's hope for her returning children. And I like to show like hummingbirds as spirits, and it's related to our Aztec culture, where Aztecs believed when they died, like warriors, they would become hummingbirds. And I thought, wow, when I learned that when I was at San Jose State Mexican American Studies classes, it was like, yeah, that speaks to me. And so I like to incorporate hummingbirds in that sense. in a spiritual way. The second piece, you'll see this Virgen, the sort of like Virgen de Guadalupe, um, is missing in the center, and you have these, but her kind of her spirit or her form is in the middle. And I know some people think, oh, that's like a vagina. Like, yeah, there's it's sort of like a vagina, but that's not the intent. But it's okay if you see that. That's fine. Um, and you have there's these women's arms that are raised, and it's like that desire, that like the desire to be connected to their children. And if they're not connected, then who's there with them? And so it's like a spiritual thing. It's, very kind of Catholic, having the Virgen, the mother, a mother, indigenous woman mother, being connected to her, to those children who are lost. But that yearning of love to be connected is what I was trying to convey in that piece. The last piece here, with the mural. So this is at a little dog park that's connected to the Vegelutions market, and it's a lovely little park. And I was selected as one of the artists to do a mural on the side of the San Jose Quilt and Textile Museum. And my piece is about, this particular piece is about huipiles, Mexican blouses that have a lot of history, and those blouses kind of talk about regions of people and their locations and their symbols of flowers and certain things of nature in those blouses. And a lot of people don't know that, but they're there. And even the shape of it talks about the four corners of the, four corners, four spirits. And so in this piece, I'm kind of showing the colors from a Oaxacan culture, like the Oaxacan colors in that sense that it comes from. Oh my gosh, I forgot the name of the little insect. The cochinil, little bug that grows on or kind of lives on the cactus, and they use that as a dye to make variations of colors. So I'm showing that in there, but using iconography of California and the Ohlone, talking about location. And I incorporated these colors from Oaxaca because I can't remember what year it was. I think 2013. I don't remember what year, but I was a recipient of the National Endowment for Humanities Award for a teacher to study with another group of teachers to study about the Mesoamerican culture of Oaxaca, and that opportunity was life-changing for me. This Chicana, light-skinned, bocha, who doesn't speak Spanish very well, understands a lot of Spanish, but doesn't speak it fluently, felt connected, felt at home, embraced like having a rebozo around me, welcoming me. And I learned so much. I was very moved, very inspired by the artwork there, that I came back from that experience with the understanding of, yeah, I'm Mexican. Like, I'm Mexican American. I understand that, but in me, in my bones, in my spirit, I'm a Mexican woman. And I can learn Spanish, and and I'm learning each time. And I have value, like, even though, that sometimes you're not a part of each culture, right? Or a little bit more of another. But I do have value and I have purpose. And it was like being there again in Oaxaca, and being with other artists and learning with other artists, learning how to do woodblock printing, because that's where I learned, by the artists that were there who were generous to give me their time. I came back with a very strong direction of purpose, of understanding about talking about social justice issues, through my art, um, talking about things that matter, things that were important, um, and uh, and having this be really incorporated into who I am. And each year I go to Oaxaca, except for during the pandemic, I had stopped going. But this summer, yay, I'm going to go. So that is a big part of what I do in my work. It's also a big part of what I do and what I teach or how I teach my students. I don't really do a lot of showing my work. I know it's kind of weird. People are like, "How don't show your kids your work?" And it's like, I don't, because I think most of my teaching and teaching young people, teaching young Latinos, or teaching a variety of different kids of different backgrounds. My job as an artist, as a teacher, is to help students develop that voice. And I don't want to necessarily muddy it up with me, like my own voice, right? Because they're still developing. And so I they learn about my work. They do. And I just don't like make it a big point. But it's my job to kind of give them a platform like these other women, Lorna de Cervantes and Sofía Mendoza, gave me. Giving them a platform, giving them ways to think and how to approach their life through art, through communication, through sharing about how they feel, um, validating them, um, and like validating them through how they're expressing themselves in what I'm teaching them, basic foundation of art. And so that's the direction that I do when I teach. Um, and I will say that I'm a very lucky person to love what I do, to wake up every day, to go and work with students and do the artwork that I love to do too. Again, it's just been a great honor to have the opportunity to talk about these women and in my work, um, and and thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk a little bit about my artwork too and my process. And this is sort of the last example of one of my pieces that it's about the future is brown and it slash love and courage, because it takes a lot of love and courage to create art, to be a woman in our society, um, to be a woman in the society that, like, because I'm not married and I don't like, especially in this society, because you're like you have to have incomes coming in and stuff, but to be a woman in the society, to keep pushing forward, um, and doing what you love, right? And in this picture, so I had this picture with black print, mixed media. It was selected to be at the Normanetta Airport. And Normanetta graduated from San Jose High, and and um, and to have my friend's daughter she took a photo. I didn't actually see the exhibition. It was during the pandemic, and anyway, my friend who's a photographer, um, her daughter went, and her daughter just jumped into that pose when she saw it, and she captured her. And I thought, man, that's how it is. That's how it needs to be. Having art in the public, to be inspired, to be moved, and I hope my work of these two women, are part of that, of movement, right? And again and again, thank you for selecting me to be one of the women artists. Thank you.
Oh my goodness. Yolanda, you just gave us so much. Thank you so much. I mentioned this earlier, right, with Elba, is that I've had the opportunity to speak about the work at that corner. And of course, that includes your work. And people are always um, amazed that you created those quilts in such a short amount of time. um and especially when I tell people, that these are women that you picked, these are women that you admired, and I give I have given the reasons why, and so I learned more today, which was fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. But I also, because as I mentioned earlier, I know the quilting world a little bit because I worked at the Quilt and Textile Museum at one point. And it takes a lot, telling people what that whole process is. Quilting is, you have to piece and then you quilt it, and quilting is the actual threading in between those layers, and the border and everything. I applaud you for the work that you created.
Thank you.
I think it is incredible that you were able to do that as quick as you did. And not only that, but you were able to represent these two amazing women, these women that I didn't know about. And I grew up here in East San Jose, and I'm Mexican American. I later in life started identifying as Chicana, and I don't say it as much as I probably would like to. There's, as you mentioned, there's a lot of that kind of back and forth of what is that battle, right? And I really appreciate you being vulnerable and sharing that personal experience, because the people who are watching might be experiencing the same, right? And so if we don't share the stories and the histories of the women of the women that have influenced our lives to help us become better women or better humans and better people, then how do others going to do that as well as we continue as human beings, right? We
Yeah.
may not have children. I don't have children either, but we may not have children, right? But there are those young people that are going to see the incredible things that we don't maybe see as incredible, right? That we take for granted for, and they're seeing it. I mean, you have these students who you're not maybe necessarily sharing that your work deliberately, but they see the work that you're doing. And we're very lucky to be able to have two art teachers speak with us today and doing saintly work, because we all know that being a teacher is just not easy for a number of reasons, not just being in the classroom, but all the other reasons that involve that. um, Housing, as you said, pay, and we live in Silicon Valley, all of the above,
Yeah.
right? So I think just hearing those stories, hearing your personal story, and also sharing the stories of two different women that you chose specifically for womanhood. As you said, you chose them, and you brought them on board to the list that we have already created as historians, but also sharing the lives of Josefina. Wow, I did not know that. That is an amazing story, and also sharing your miracle tortillas. I'm looking at my notes, your miracle tortillas, which I've seen before, and I think they're incredible.
Thank you.
So I'm glad you brought them into the presentation today. Um, yeah, I just want to thank you.
You're
I'm really glad that you shared all of that, and I think that there's so much more to learn from. I- is what you shared is prime examples of the continuous lessons that we can learn about an individual that we may think we know about. Like you mentioned, Sophia, right? You knew things about her, but
Yeah,
there was more stuff there.
for sure. For sure.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask you quickly, is um you know Lorna, you you brought her, like you said you met her, you learned about her when you were at Evergreen, but what really gravitated, I mean, like, did you ever get a chance to meet her? And
Yeah.
okay, you did. Okay, because I don't remember you saying that, and I was
Yeah.
really
Oh yeah.
particular about writing all my notes.
I got to meet her, like, I think she spoke at San Jose State, and I had the book
Right.
uh by the time I got to San Jose, anyway, I had the book and I went up to her, and so I had this book signed. It's signed, but I didn't really get to talk to her until, oh man, I had this opportunity. It was last year that I was invited to be a co-host on KKUP,
Oh,
Gaza, and
yeah.
um, uh, with Lujan,
Uh-huh.
and um, and so she had asked me, and she didn't know like I had this like Lorna de Cervantes, she'd asked me to do it and be a co-host. I said okay, and I did all this research, research, like okay, how I'm going to talk to her, like, and doing all this stuff. And Lupe has like a relaxed way of doing stuff, and I'm just like, no, I want to know what I'm going to ask her, whatever. And so I asked her, like, so I have my little segment, like a few little minutes, and I asked her a question. I asked her a question that I heard someone else ask this question on some other kind of workshop.
Yeah.
She started crying,
Oh.
and I'll tell you the question in a second. But she said no one's ever asked me that kind of question, and she was like feeling it right now. And then so she kind of talked, and I thought, oh my god, I made her cry. Like, oh no, like just kind of nervous. And then I had to read this poem that no one ever asked her to read, and that's Implomada. And it was a great experience. But I was so shook after,
Yeah.
like, and
Yeah.
that was it. So, and then after that, like, she friended me, And then when I saw her, I was like, oh, she friended me, you know. And then I thought, okay, okay, Lorna is friends with my friend on Facebook. but anyway, when I wrote to her, and I told her that I was doing this, and she was, she thanked me, and it was nice that, that kind of stuff, and said some stuff. But the first thing I asked her, I go, look, not only am I a co-host, I'm an artist and I'm doing this, but what's your favorite color? And so she told me, she gave me the Pantone color too.
Oh, wow. She knows.
Well, because she has her new book out, and she
Oh,
had a
okay.
color on there, and then she realized, like, that's not really a good color. Use teal, And I said, okay. So we're sort of connected in that way now a little bit because of those experiences, and so
Yeah.
she was really really grateful for this opportunity for me to do that with her. But I never really physically spent a lot of time with her or anything like that. That was just that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so the question, I'll just tell you the question.
Yeah,
Maybe
I'm
it's
curious.
gonna be for everyone and for you, Amanda, is that who, and I did this lesson in my classroom, and kids were like, that's deep, Miss Guerra. So I asked the question, who do you carry in your heart right now?
Oh.
And I already knew, like, I knew a little bit about her, and she had mentioned, her grandmother, who she spent a lot of time with, and because she's closer to her age now when she was young,
Mhm.
that was very moving. And so I think about that. Sometimes that the person that we carry in our heart sometimes is someone else each time, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, so
Yeah, that's a tough one. I
yeah,
always there's always at least these two women that are always in my heart. So yeah,
yeah,
thank you for
yeah.
asking that,
Same
because it
here.
is a reminder.
Don't cry, Amanda.
Yeah. Oh, I've definitely done that. Oh, yeah, that's a tough, and it's funny that you asked that, because I go straight to two women,
Yeah,
right? These two women who made an influence in my life, and
yeah,
one who's family and one who could be family, right?
yeah.
So, um, no, thank you. Yeah, I think that's
Yeah.
look at you. You got me speechless.
Let me ask you some more questions, Amanda. So you don't ask me.
Oh my goodness. Well, it got me thinking when you were talking about the Roosevelt Middle School, and I want to ask this question before we bring Elba back on. But um, have you thought about any other, like, places where you'd want to see public art, and who?
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm curious now, because I can imagine there's probably a lot of names going on through your head because you've done a lot
yeah.
of work.
Well, I will say, like, Sofia Mendoza, there should be a statue of Sofia Mendoza at the Roosevelt Center. That's
Mhm.
really a key thing. And you know, public art in San Jose is an interesting, it's an interesting thing. I will say that much.
Yeah.
And but I mean, I will say, and I don't have specific names, but and I do these, like, sometimes I get an opportunity to do these like the utility boxes, and I always
Mhm.
make it a point to add the people, like cannery workers, the women in the canneries. And
Mhm.
I want to do, I'm telling the universe, I want to do a piece of cannery workers, bigger piece, and I have
Yeah.
ideas for it. But if not me, more people
Yeah.
talking about these women who
Yeah.
work in the
Yeah.
canneries, because the women who worked in the canneries at that time period were supporting their families. And my mom was one of those.
So was
And
my grandmother.
yeah,
Yeah.
and not only that they were doing, okay, not only that they were doing this, supporting their families, they they were also showing us as young women, right,
That women
how
could
to
work.
work and how to be a family member,
Right.
right?
Right.
Um, and bringing in money, the extra money. Like my
Yeah.
mom, she bought me a sewing machine. She was
No.
able to buy me a sewing machine, right?
Yeah.
So it's all that kind of stuff. And I
Yeah.
think for me, I would say cannery workers, because so many people, like, Silicon Valley, commuters, the boy
Yeah.
club, the bra club, the bro club, or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, but no, it's not really that. And I think
Yeah.
that's the thing about public art here. It's like, or even San Jose, you can't be San Jose by forgetting people. And I
Yeah.
think And I think that's why there's no traction here,
Mhm.
is because too many people want to forget and like let
Mm,
people, let that history go. But
mhm.
that's not how things survive, and that's not how things get moved forward. You don't forget people. And so anyway, that's something that I would like to see happen.
Well, thank you. I'm glad you brought that up. And I have heard that a few times since we started this project. So it's great to keep on hearing the cannery workers as
Yeah.
women that need to be recognized. Because it's fine. I took it for granted hearing my grandmother's stories. I was like, oh, she just worked in the cannery because she had to when my
Yeah.
grandfather didn't have work. Yeah, I didn't think anything of it.
Yeah.
So appreciate that. Definitely.
You're welcome.
Let's bring Elba back into the room. I want to share a quote quickly, and we have a few more minutes. And bring you both of you wonderful women into this space. So because we've been talking a lot about feminism and both conversations, um, I I had an opportunity with our team to go to this really fantastic exhibition in Berkeley at the Berkeley Art Museum called New Time: Art and Feminisms in the 21st Century. And so the in the book it says uh, feminism is a historical project and thus is itself constantly shaped and remodeled in relation to the living process of women's struggles. And I feel like that's kind of what I've been hearing is that it's a constant change. Like we as women are constantly redeveloping what that word feminism means, and it doesn't necessarily mean we're far left or or we're anti-man or anything like that, but instead that we're about moving the stories forward, right? And whether that be the women in the canneries, whether that be school teachers, or whether that be poets and so forth, and judges, it is incredibly important to create that space and not just create it but continue it. So I just wanted to share that with both of you, and if you wanted to speak on it, if it brought anything to you before we finish this conversation, to have the opportunity to be in the same space together.
Yolanda, do you want to speak first?
Oh no, you go. I've been talking. Like, let's take a break.
I know. I mean, I am so enthralled by everything that you said that
Wow.
I'm. I feel like this little if I speak because you said some huge, amazing things. But I do think that it's changing. I did a womanhood type project in my classroom where I had students define an important historical woman, and then I had them design masks and then create historical masks. Like if Frida Kahlo was alive, like what would her story on her mask be? And then I had them write reflections, and some of the reflections came back saying that, that students didn't realize that women were underrepresented, and students didn't realize that it was still an issue. I think we feel like we've come so far already in feminist movement, right? Like people like the students, they were saying, well, I didn't even realize that there was inequality. I think we're pretty equal, right? And it's yes, we've come a long way. Like we can vote, we're in the same classrooms, right? Like we're wearing pants, uh we still don't have big enough pockets, but
Well,
uh you know
sometimes.
uh we've come a long way, but we have to analyze where we're at right now in the movement, and we have to move forward from there. Just because we are where we're at doesn't mean that we've made the progress that of where we need to be at, if that makes sense. We always got to keep moving forward because no, we're not equal. No, we don't have the same privileges that men do, and we just have to stop, put the pause button, analyze, figure out what we need to move forward, and then take it from there, because that's the movement that we need to be in at the moment. And it's going to change, right, a year from now, because we're going to make progress and we're going to have more than we did last year, but we still have to keep moving forward.
For me, it's a constant change, but I think the change, and I'm speaking for myself, I think the change has to come with me, like, and how I approach like situations, um, and talking about that, talking about those little increments of change, whether it's like you're at a meeting, and I know it still happens. You go to a meeting, you're talking, and people say, that's interesting, and the guy talks, and it's like, hey, that's such a great idea. Let's implement it. It's like, dude, and it's so, but stepping in and saying, hey, that's exactly what I just said, and let's all work together, or just acknowledging, being aware of those things that, kind of oppress us, acknowledge it, and communicate and talk about it, because I think the more we stuff it away, then we don't move forward. The more we don't talk about it, the more we don't share our stories, then, we don't move forward. And I think with this project, like this Womanhood Project, it's amazing because we are talking about these women and their lives. So
And I think that's the power of art. If I can interrupt really quick, the power of art is to start conversations.
Mm-hmm.
When societies get deleted, when societies get taken over, the first thing that happens is they get rid of their books with the images and they get rid of their artwork so that you can reshape or remarket or rebrand the new society coming in. Art is basically conversation starters. It creates culture. It creates the image of what is to come and what we're going to believe in. So by creating artwork right now with women's faces, different colors, different body types, right? Like because body type is something that is primarily placed on women if we don't look a specific way, right? I don't see it in the men culture a lot. A little anecdote. I was playing a board game with my sister, and the board game had all these different body type men for the characters, and all the women looked like little Barbies. And I'm like, why can't I find like non-Barbie Barbies in here? I'm gonna write to the maker. Why did he make such very men? And then all the women are just like stamps. So if we are creating the artwork of what needs to be spoken about, then we are redefining the culture. Basically, we're starting those conversations.
Yeah, I mean, the question here is, can Womanhood, the project, help further this movement, with the artwork that is being created or that we're going to be asking artists to create throughout the county, right? Because we're talking about San Jose, but really, right, it's 15 cities in this county. It's a huge county. And we have to create space where these stories can be told. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? What do you think Womanhood has the power to do that in the county? I mean, look what we did in San Jose.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, for sure. I would say yeah, but any like I'm not gonna. Okay, I say yes, but this information has to be like filtered through like men. Not filtered, but like, hey men, here we are. Hello.
I see what you're saying. Like, we need to get it to them.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
And not necessarily get it to them because they're gonna be the vehicles and to help change. It's like, no, like, hello, we're here and we're not going away. And that's like with any culture that's oppressed, right? We're here, we're not going away. We're aware of who we are, and hear us roar.
Absolutely. So Elba, because you mentioned creating more examples for your boys earlier, can you see diverse representation of women? And Yolanda, I'm sure you can answer this as well as somebody who's a teacher. Can you, like, how would you see that?
Diverse representation?
Yeah.
Well, first, when I made the choice to not just be a teacher, but to also be a very active, I was a hobby artist, but now I'm a very active artist. I can barely keep my head afloat, but I felt a lot of guilt for like getting a studio and leaving my home and leaving my children with my husband. Like, it's not something that I was taught, to be a woman that's outside the house making herself a career. it was okay for me to be teaching, but it wasn't, for some reason, it wasn't okay for me to, follow my passion. And, I go to my studio in the nighttime, and then I come home like at 12 or at 1, like right there, I'm breaking that stereotype for my children. So having that example of, being a working mom and being a studio, and then I paint with a bunch of guys that together we create, right? It's 3 big guys, and I'm this tiny little, tall woman, and I go paint with them. And what I love about the men that I work with, Whisper, Messenger, and Roberto, what I love about them is that they're with me. If there isn't enough female representation, they're the first ones on the table that are saying, we need to get more women painting. We need to get representation. Are we about 50-50? So I surround myself, for my boys as well, I surround myself around not just women that are powerful and making changes, but I also surround myself with men that understand the movement. That's why it's not a women's movement. It's a humans movement. And if we can all work together to make those changes, then there's going to be examples for our students. And then they're going to directly then affect their children and their cousins and their family and then their friends, because they're going to have these conversations.
Yeah.
I think for me, as a high school teacher, being a Latina Chicana in my classroom with a variety of young Latino men, young men and women, especially women, young girls, is that I am not in that space. I don't have children. I am not married, and for them to see me that way. I actually had a student probably 5 or 6 years ago. He said, "Don't you think you should be married?" And he was, I know. And I was gentle with him. And I said, why do you think I should be? And so he had this whole idea of why I should be, children, the whole thing. And I said, well, there's no guarantee that your children are going to take care of you. So, and why would you put that on children to take care of you, And so he said, whoa, I never thought of it that way. And I said, yeah, that's right. So I said, all of us women and Latinas, we all are different times, And so I think just me being me and the life that I'm choosing to live is that kind of change for some of the boys in my classroom.
I think those are great, 2 really great examples. I mean, just because I see friends who are parents, and I'm not. I'm an auntie. I'm a tia. I'm a great auntie, which is crazy. But things like that, and I know that they're looking at me like, what's going on here? Yeah. But at the same time, there's like this strength where it can still be we can still be those women that can be caring, and show that it doesn't change from male to female. It can be fluid, and I think that's important.
There's moments in my classroom I have to tell some boys and even some young girls, like, look, I don't know this game about what you need from me of being a mama towards you. I don't know that because I'm not a mama, but I'm here for you. But I don't know the dance. And so you got to kind of speed it up and tell me what you need. And they laugh. They think I'm funny, that kind of thing. But it is the reality. And that's the thing about acknowledging that. Like, I don't have that, but I do. But, help me along here, kind of thing.
And I think that goes deeper to what this is all about, in the sense of like, the incredible importance of making sure that stories are being told, right? That women's stories are being told. Why is there such a big family at this part of time in our history? Or why is it like this now that a woman decides to choose to have a big family? Why do they not? Why do they choose to go to work in this field and not in this field? Those are, as we move forward in time, those stories are really going to influence the way, I want to say youth, but it's not just youth. It's just people who are paying attention. To really think about the way we move forward. I just I just think that's it. That's important to share. And I think this is the opportunity to say that, and wanted to take that. So
Sure.
yeah. But one last question. We're gonna close off. This has been amazing, both of you. I could talk to you forever, by the way, but we can't do that. So I have so many more.
2 in the morning.
Yeah, I have so many more like comments and questions, and just curious about the way the two of you think, and from your two different perspectives. But I just wanted to ask, the last question is, who else should be honored and where? And I know Yolanda, you already said something, but if you have anybody else more you wanted to mention,
There's one more woman, woman. Her name is Nanette Regua, and
Mhm,
so she wrote the book Mexicans in San Jose, and she's
mhm.
written other things. I think she's a professor. I'm not sure. I think she's a professor.
I think I
But I
have the
think,
book you're talking about,
yeah,
actually.
and I think she should be honored. That's who I have.
Thank you.
Oh,
And you?
Amy Tan, and I don't know, because she went to San Jose State, but I don't know if she's ever been honored. But those two women are the two that I
Oh, lovely.
would like to have on the list.
Elba?
Well, when I originally heard of this project, I was wondering if Tamara Alvarado was in the project. I think she has done a lot of work for just for the arts, for education, for even for the like indigenous culture. So I think she's definitely if she's not on there, she should be on there.
Well, those three women, I know of two of them, but Amy, I'll have to learn about. And I'm glad that you both have shared those names with us, because I wrote them down, which is what I'm looking at. Tamara actually is a part of our advisory council for this actual project, so she is a big part of this project. So I'm glad you said that name.
I think I didn't see her name on there, and I really was committed to in like representing the list that you worked so hard to put together. But I think if there was no list, I probably would have picked her. Really fun story. She'll probably laugh if she hears this. But I do remember Tamara when she would be in these meetings, very important with executives. She had children, and she would just start breastfeeding in the middle of the meetings. Like, it doesn't matter. I'm breastfeeding. It's your problem. If you have a problem with it, she wouldn't say it, but it was the comfort in which she would breastfeed that when I became a mother and it was my turn to breastfeed, I always looked up to, and it's so
I
strange that
believe it. I totally.
we have the courage, right? It's
Yeah,
not something I
yeah.
should be courageous about, but people have shamed our bodies so much that I was afraid to breastfeed. So I just would always think about Tamara when I was breastfeeding and try to like take off my shawl just to prove that I could be Tamara like.
And I've seen women do that who I don't know, and I admire them. I think
Right.
that's incredible, because, as you said, right, I think you both said it in your own ways, but our bodies are here not only to give pleasure, but the ability to give life. And though I haven't done that, and I probably won't, I still appreciate being a woman, and know that importance, that we can give life in a way that no other living being can, right? So thank you both. I want to thank you both again for spending your evening with me and everybody else who's been watching this amazing episode. And we're going to close out. So just want to say thank you, and give you a chance to say goodbye before I move forward.
Goodbye.
I'm very famous for peace.
I love it. I love it.
Right.
All right. Thank you to the artists, Elba and Yolanda, for spending time with us today and sharing their experiences, not only with the Womanhood Project, but with, being women themselves, of course, in their own ways, and artists, and being women artists. So to stay involved with this Womanhood Project, these are the ways that you can continue to participate. You can join in on the Artists Honoring Women conversations every third Monday of the month. Check out the project website for updates at www.womanhoodproject.org. Womanhood is a community driven project. We've said that a number of times and we're going to keep on saying it. We invite you to let us know the people and groups who have made significant historical contributions to your region. You can do that by nominating a woman and going to our website on the screen, which is www.womanhoodproject.org. Nominate a person. You can also help us locate and identify site opportunities for women's public recognition across the county. What areas in your neighborhood or community hold historical significance that we should know about? Tonight you heard about the Roosevelt Community Center. So what are other places in the county that will help us and that you can help us identify where women should be recognized? Are there open gathering spaces, trails, buildings, and any other opportunities that we should be aware of? Let us know by pinning your ideas and feedback on our womanhood map. If you need inspiration, visit Co-Urbanize website to read what other community members have already shared. Thank you again for joining us today, and we hope that you really enjoyed this third episode of Artists Honoring Women.